I protect all of my passwords, accounts, and devices using Aura. I get instant alerts about threats, like if my email or password are found on the dark web, so I can fix the problem fast. Try Aura free for 2 weeks using my link below. There is a very interesting new poll out, a 2024 poll, in which Joe Biden is leading Donald Trump by 6. Now, why do we care about that? It's September of 2022. Well, there are a number of different reasons. One is that, like no election I can remember, we are already sort of in the 2024 election. And usually each election is a very kind of compartmentalized with very clear boundaries election. And in this case, it is very different, as much of what is already happening now bears directly on 2024. It's also something we care about because Donald Trump's refrain has been, "I'm winning every poll." Now, we don't know if Trump is running. We don't know if Joe Biden is running. So what it would even mean to lead a poll is a question. But it is not true that Donald Trump is leading every poll. Let's take a look. The Hill reporting. New poll shows Biden with 6-point lead on Trump. Biden is leading Trump by 6 in a hypothetical 2024 presidential matchup, new polling shows. In a Yahoo News YouGov poll released yesterday, Wednesday, 48% of registered voters said they'd vote Biden if the election were today, and 42% say they'd vote Trump. Now, that's only 90% of the electorate, meaning there's still another 10% in flux. That is often the case in these polls. Biden held a 3-point lead in the hypothetical 2020 rematch in August. From August to September, Biden's lead has gone from 3 to 6. Now, again, a bunch of different caveats. First of all, this is just one poll. If we look at more polls, you'll see that Trump is leading some of them, but more recently, Biden's leading all of them. If you look at an Emerson poll from about 2 weeks ago, it's Biden +1. If you look at a Wall Street Journal poll from about 2.5 weeks ago, it's Biden +6. And then before that, you had Trump leading 3 polls in a row, one of which was an admittedly right-leaning Trafalgar Group poll. So it is not the only poll, this new poll, in which Joe Biden is leading. But what I want to focus on is the absurdity of what is going on in the United States. Trump belongs in prison more than he belongs on presidential polls. The idea that Trump might even have a shot at the Republican nomination is extraordinarily disturbing and embarrassing for the country. This is a guy who should never be running again for anything. He shouldn't be allowed to run again based on the things that he's done. And instead, he's in it in a hypothetical matchup for the presidency. And it says way more about the voters than it does about Donald Trump himself. And so, as I always say, it's time to start getting your friends, your family, and your community aware of the fact that they must vote. And what better way to warm up to voting in 2024 than voting in 2022, as I've said before, because the concern, of course, is, and this is why I started this segment by saying, in a way that isn't typical, this election and 2024 are kind of running together. The 2024 election is going to be greatly influenced by what happens now in more ways than one. Yes, if there is a big MAGAT running of the table in November, that emboldens Trump for 2024, and it does build the strength of the MAGA movement for 2024. So MAGA people are on the ballot. If they lose, it's bad for Trump. If they win, it's good for Trump in 2024. But there's a much more disgusting way in which the November election bears directly on 24, which is there are people who might win in November who will help Trump steal the election in 2024. At the top of the list, of course, is Republican gubernatorial nominee for Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano. Mastriano, as I've told you before, and I know many of you have already heard this, Mastriano was at the January 6th riot, and Mastriano is a big lie proponent. And if indeed Mastriano is the governor in November of 2024, and the Democratic nominee wins Pennsylvania by a few points, Mastriano will try to steal Pennsylvania for the Republican candidate. He will try. And I rarely make predictions because there's so much left to circumstance and possibility and probability. Mastriano will try to steal Pennsylvania's electors in 2024 for the Republican, if it's a Republican that, he's in league with, like Trump. And that's why this is such an important midterm election. Trump stole nuclear documents, classified documents, top secret documents to do who the hell knows what with. And he's polling in the 40s. He's polling in the 40s among registered voters in the United States. Humiliating. And the world sees it. Now, if we want to find some good news in the data, it's that Democrats keep gaining on Republicans in 2022 election polling. The numbers are not yet a delight, but they're increasingly looking okay. Let's start with the House. Why start with the House? Well, Democrats are not favored to keep control of the House. Democrats currently control the House of Representatives. It is likely that they will lose the House of Representatives, but the numbers have been improving for Democrats every single day for months. Where do the numbers stand now? The 538 forecast for the House says that it's a 74% chance that Republicans take the House and a 26% chance that Democrats keep the House. But look at the way the numbers have shifted. If you scroll down on this 538 page, which is a very, very detailed, and it's a great forecast, you will see a section called How the House Forecast has Changed. And you will see that in early June, Democrats had a 14% chance of holding the House. That even dropped to 12 in late June, early July. But it has been a steady but, modest surge, almost doubling the odds of Democrats keeping the House, going from actually more than doubling, going from a bottom out of 12 to a 26% chance. Now, remember, things that are 12% likely to happen sometimes happen. Things that are 26% likely to happen sometimes happen. But things that are 74% likely to happen are more likely to happen by definition. So I can't tell you that I think it's a great shot for Democrats in the House, but the numbers have been improving. And if Democrats keep adding on, a 1 percentage point chance every other day between now and November, that's 30, right? That would put this at 50-50 by election day. So that's what's happening in the House. Now, in the Senate, things are looking much better for Democrats. In the Senate, Democrats are now 70% likely to hold control of the Senate, whereas Republicans are only 30% likely. This has gone, last week I told you it was 2-1 in favor of Democrats. It is now 2 1/3 or whatever. It's well beyond 2-1 at this point in time. And again, these are numbers that have improved for Democrats. There was a point in early June where Democrats had a 40% shot of holding the Senate. That is now a 70% shot. Very, very important to understand, because there are people writing to me saying, David, why do you keep saying Democrats are going to have 70 senators? And of course, David is not saying that. What I am telling you is that it is a 70% chance that Democrats hold the Senate. The most likely outcome is that Democrats hold it 51-49. That would be a gain of 1 seat. Right now in the Senate, it's 50-50. The vice president gets a tie-breaking vote. That's Kamala Harris. So Democrats are in the majority, 50-50 plus Kamala. The most likely outcome here is a 51-49 majority for Democrats. So please do not write to me saying, David, Democrats have no chance in hell of getting 70 seats. I'm agreeing with you. That's not what the number means. That's not what the number means. But I appreciate everybody writing in. So the bottom line, Democrats' chances continuing to improve. And if they merely continue improving at the same rate, the House will end up a 50-50 flip of the coin by early November. We will watch and see whether that happens. Let's now take a look at the flavor of what's going on in some congressional races among Republicans. And I will tell you, it is absolutely sick. Last night, Republicans debated in the New Hampshire 1st District, race. There were 5 Republicans up on the stage. 4 of them said they would impeach Joe Biden on day one. What? Impeach him for what? Well, that they don't agree on. You really have to see this. And this is really indicative of the brazen, partisan, unhinged nature of the Republican Party at this point in time. You are going to hear in a moment from Tim Baxter, Caroline Leavitt, Russell Prescott, and Gail Huff Brown, all of whom are ready to impeach Joe Biden the day they get into Congress, if they do. Now, the fifth Republican here, Matt Mowers, he's not ready to say impeach yet, but he certainly thinks we need hearings to figure out whether to impeach Joe Biden. I know, it's extraordinarily disturbing. It's extraordinarily sad. Let's take a listen.
Would you vote to impeach President Biden for anything he's done so far in office?
Absolutely.
Caroline.
Yes, the dereliction of duty at our southern border. He's allowed for an invasion of our country. He has been.
Now remember, almost nothing has changed at the southern border from Trump to Biden, other than as the pandemic eased, more people started to try to come to the United States. There has been, and some families have been reunited that were separated under Trump. There has been no real change, but these Republicans want you to think there's been some 180 at the border.
Betrayed his oath to the Constitution and our homeland.
Ms. Huff Brown.
The commander-in-chief has one job: to protect Americans at home and abroad, and he did not protect Americans in Afghanistan. That was the day I got into the race.
So remember that they don't know. They're not sure why. They don't agree on why, but they know Biden needs to be impeached. One, it's because of what he did at the southern border. Oh, well, actually, no, it's because of what he did in Afghanistan, which, by the way, is the same thing Trump would have done.
All right, that's 3 for 3. Councilor Prescott?
Yes, I would.
4 for 4. And Matt Mowers?
We do have to have hearings to look into these things. The fact that you had the president and Secretary of Defense lying to the American people about intelligence reports coming out of Afghanistan has to be looked into.
Yeah. Would you?
So 4 out of 5 say, yes, I would impeach on day one. I would vote to impeach now. And number 5 out of 5 says, I've got to do hearings. We must do hearings in order to figure out whether to impeach. Oh, boy. So it's the border, it's dereliction of duty, it's Afghanistan, or it's just not really clear why. Understand that we have an economy right now that is essentially at full employment. We have consumer demand for all sorts of products and services off the charts. Demand for doctors is off the charts. Demand for electricians is off the charts. Demand for plumbers is off the charts. Demand for car detailing is off the charts. We are out of Afghanistan, which Trump was going to do. 2 jobs reports in a row with significantly greater than expected jobs numbers. Gas declining 26% over a 2.5 month period, as rapid a decline as we have ever seen in gas prices. Inflation coming down with an inflation report coming out Tuesday, which I expect is going to be pretty good. Inflation Reduction Act, a PACT Act. I could go on and on and on. And the absolute political theater taking place among the Republican Party has 4 out of 5 Republicans outright saying I would impeach him right now, and a 5th saying, well, we should at least look into it with some hearings. And the most important takeaway here is, there's the optics of the cartoonish nature of this, and that is not something to be ignored. It is cartoonish and it's a joke. But there's a bigger story here that is a broader Republican story. What is the policy vision for the Republican Party that they've articulated, I would ask, over the last 6 months, over the last 2 years, over the last 6 years? Increasingly, there is no policy. It's we've got to stop Marxism. We've got to stop woke. We've got to impeach Biden. It's dereliction of duty. The country is going to hell, as Donald Trump, you'll hear him on Indian TV. This is going to be a rare treat for you. On Indian TV, Donald Trump saying the country is going to hell. And it's all about appeasing the most extreme, unhinged elements of their party. And I want to remind people, the New Hampshire 1st District, in fact, I want to be accurate about this, New Hampshire 1st District 2020 presidential results. In the New Hampshire 1st Congressional District in 2020, this was Trump won it in 2016, but then Biden won it quite easily. Yeah, Biden won it by 6 in 2020. This is not like an extreme district. Now, these are Republicans. I understand the Republicans there may be extreme. This is a district that voted Biden pretty handily for what's considered a purple state, New Hampshire, in 2020. And yet they are still kowtowing to the most extreme elements of the Republican Party. Will that work in the general? I mean, probably not. But it is political theater all meant to appease their dear orange leader, and it's pathetic. I want to remind you that on 9/19, we are doing a 19-themed membership special. If you've been thinking, well, David, I kind of like the show. I like the idea of the bonus show, regardless of what Alex Jones says.
Oh, the bonus show where you want to make money. Everybody else that makes money to fund themselves is bad.
Right. If that has tickled your fancy, but you're just waiting for the right moment to strike, get on my mailing list at davidpakman.com. And on 9/19, you'll get a beautiful email, a perfect email, telling you how to avail yourself of an extraordinary membership discount. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Imagine this scenario. You try logging into your email account to see that your password was changed a few hours ago, except you didn't do it. And then you get notifications of activity from your bank and from your credit cards, but you didn't do any of it. That is what identity theft is like. It can happen very quickly. And if you don't act fast, it can get worse. We've dealt with this at the David Pakman Show. You can find videos about it. And that's why I protect myself now using Aura. Our sponsor, Aura, is identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, password management, and an antivirus all in one easy-to-use app. Aura will monitor the dark web for your emails, passwords, and social security numbers, and will send you alerts quickly to your phone and email. Aura also gives you near real-time alerts on suspicious credit inquiries, like if someone was opening a loan or a credit card in your name. And if you sign up at aura.com/Pakman, you will get a free 2-week trial, which you can use to see if your login credentials have been leaked online. I would want to know that right away. Use the link below. Let's talk a little bit about the special master that has been appointed by Judge Eileen Cannon to oversee the documents seized at Donald Trump's house. There's really no way to put it lightly. Bess Levin has a very good article in Vanity Fair called Trump's Special Master Situation is Shady as F, according to legal experts. Now, I encourage you to check out the entire article because it will go into a lot more detail than I will go into today. But as many of you who have emailed me have suspected, the legal reasoning for the special master being granted is extraordinarily shaky. And as many legal experts have weighed in, it will really do nothing other than slightly delay the process of this criminal investigation into Donald Trump. Now, that shouldn't be dismissed as nothing. Donald Trump's strategy for many years legally has been delay. Any opportunity you have to delay is good. And most lawyers will agree that, at least as far as the clients they represent, right? If you ask them about some case they're not involved in, most of them will say, the delay tactics don't typically help over the long term. But there are lawyers who will say, well, listen, what I know is if I can delay, I give myself an opportunity to mount a better defense, allow people to quit, retire, get bored, get frustrated, whatever. So delay is usually considered something that lawyers like to do and that they can bill for, by the way. So Bess Levin reports, Judge Eileen Cannon granted this request from Donald Trump's legal team for a special master. A special master reviews the documents, holds and reviews the documents. In this case, it's 11,000 government documents that were seized from Mar-a-Lago on August 8th. And the reason that this is advantageous to Trump, at least in theory, is that while the documents are under the review of the special master, prosecutors can't continue using those documents and examining the documents for their criminal investigation. The review has to happen first. Trump's claim is that some of the materials are covered by executive privilege. Some of the materials are medical documents, etc. Legal experts, by and large, believe that the ruling is absurd for a couple of different reasons. First, let's start with Samuel Buell, who's a Duke University law professor. He spoke to the New York Times and said, quote, "To any lawyer with serious federal criminal court experience who is being honest, this ruling is laughably bad, and the written justification is even flimsier. Donald Trump is getting something no one else ever gets in federal court. He's getting it for no good reason, and it will not in the slightest reduce the ongoing howls that he is being persecuted when he is being privileged. That's a really important point. Trump's story is, I am being treated uniquely terribly by the justice system. The reality is he's being treated uniquely well. The fact that the Justice Department and FBI waited so long to do the search warrant after they requested the documents from Trump under subpoena and they weren't turned over. That is a privilege that was granted to Donald Trump. The fact that the special master has been appointed is a privilege for Donald Trump. Constitutional law professor Lawrence Tribe wrote about Judge Eileen Cannon's decision. Her decision was utterly lawless. She has disgraced her position as an Article III judge. And then former U.S. acting Solicitor General Neil Katyal wrote on Twitter, this special master opinion is so bad, it's hard to know where to begin. She says Biden hasn't weighed in on whether documents are protected by executive privilege. Nonsense. The archives letter makes it clear the current president thinks none of this is privileged. The archivist says it is not a close question. 2, the judge enjoins the entire investigation because some of the material might be subject to executive privilege. But executive privilege isn't some post-presidential privilege that allows presidents to keep documents after they leave office. At most, it simply means these are executive documents that must be returned to the archives. It doesn't in any way, shape, or form mean they can't be used in a criminal prosecution about stolen documents. And lastly, this is an important point, Judge Cannon said that the reputational harm to Trump from the documents justifies a special master. And Katyal says that's insane. Every criminal defendant has reputational harm. Are we now going to have special masters in every criminal investigation? And that's a really important point. One of the big statements made by Judge Eileen Cannon is the reputational harm that Trump would suffer or might suffer from these documents being given to the FBI, potentially made public, etc., justifies a special master getting all the documents and reviewing them. Arguably, anytime you are raided and potentially indicted by the federal government, you're going to suffer reputationally, even if the charges are ultimately dropped. This is one of the things that is sort of I don't know what to call it, a calling card. It's a feature or a bug, whatever, of our justice system, which is sometimes people are arrested and charged, and then they are found not guilty or charges are dismissed. And there is still the risk of, and sometimes there really is reputational harm. If you're accused of murder and charged with murder, and then there's a lengthy trial and you're acquitted, it's not like everything goes back to zero because you were found not guilty. And you can argue that that's a problem with our justice system. It's a problem arguably with many justice systems, which is you can be charged and there can be a trial and then you're acquitted. But the fact that you were charged still hurts you in some way reputationally. It's not unique to Donald Trump. And the idea, as Neil Katyal points out, arguably, anytime this happens to any defendant, there's reputational harm. You're not going to grant a special master in all cases is another one of the signs that Donald Trump isn't being persecuted unfairly. He's actually being privileged. He is being deferred to and given things that so many other defendants are not. Speaking of defendants, Stephen Bannon is expected today to surrender and be indicted again over the cash for the border wall scam that he participated in. This is very interesting. CNN reporting. Steve Bannon is expected to surrender today to face New York State charges related to his fundraising effort to build a wall along the southern U.S. border. Remember, this was the scam in which, when it became clear Trump wasn't going to build the wall and Mexico wasn't going to pay for it, et cetera, some individuals, including Bannon, participated in a give us cash and we'll build the wall thing. And it was a total scam. The state charges, which have been returned in an indictment, are based on the same conduct Bannon was charged with by federal prosecutors in 2020. If this rings a bell, it's because indeed Bannon was already charged federally for this. Then President Donald Trump pardoned Bannon on those charges as he was leaving office. Presidential pardons do not apply to state investigations. Robert Costello, an attorney for Bannon, said Wednesday that the former Trump aide is expected to plead not guilty when he is arraigned. The Washington Post first reported Bannon's plans to surrender. And then the other stuff, I mean, you guys probably would understand or expect all the other stuff. Bannon calls the charges phony. He says it's partisan. He says it's political weaponization. He says he's a leading voice to protect our borders. He says, in fact, I have not yet begun to fight. They will have to kill me first, which are certainly fighting words. There are two sides to this, and I want to remind you about the two. And by the way, by two sides, I don't mean there's two sides as to whether what Bannon did was wrong. That's not what I mean. There's two aspects to this. First of all, does the evidence point to Bannon participating in a fraud? It does. That's why he was indicted federally, and that's why he is now being indicted at the state level. It is correct. The evidence points to it. He should not receive special treatment. If the evidence is there, you must indict, and that's what's happening. The second part of this is the victims of the fraud, the victims of the scam. And we've talked about this before. Remember that, to make an analogy, after the 2020 election, when Joe Biden won and was clearly going to become the president, no matter what Donald Trump tried to do, Donald Trump started fundraising on send me money and I will do audits and I will do recounts and I will do legal challenges. And of course, I knew, and many of you knew, those were going nowhere. And if you look at the fine print, a bunch of that money was being used by Trump to pay off campaign debt. And there was this rich guy who donated, I think it was like $250,000, maybe it was even more, who then sued and said, I got scammed. I should get my money back because I got scammed by Trump. And we said at the time, Republicans constantly talk about buyer beware and you can't have a nanny state protecting everybody from everything. So should this guy really be allowed to sue in this way? Now, of course, he's allowed, but it could be dismissed or whatever, found against him. There's a similar aspect here. In the same way that Fox News argues, no one should seriously consider the things Tucker says to be literally true. He's doing entertainment. You could make the case that no one should really have believed that Steve Bannon was going to help fundraise for a privately funded and privately built wall with Mexico. It's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. You'd have to be a moron to fall for that. And so as a result of that, what sort of protection, what sort of relief from the state should the people that were scammed get? I don't believe that just because you're a Republican, you deserve to be scammed. I don't believe that. But there's a real question about this is so absurd that does it really warrant relief for the people that were scammed? And if so, what would that relief be? I don't know the answer, but I want to hear from you. We'll have more on this and all of our other stories from today on the David Pakman Show Instagram. Yes, you can find our Instagram at David Pakman Show. And you can also find some really wacky hate mail I've gotten in the last few days on my Instagram. I am David.Pakman on Instagram. That's a period, not like spelling out dot. David.Pakman. Find me there. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpakman.com. All right, as many of you know, one of the races that I find to really point to just the absurdity of the United States of America is the Georgia Senate race, in which incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock is being challenged by a man who has already won the Republican primary race. His name is Herschel Walker. He used to be a football player. And one of the reasons that I find this race so disturbing is that Herschel Walker quite literally cannot speak. Herschel Walker is incoherent. Herschel Walker cannot explain his views on any political issue. Herschel Walker will not debate Raphael Warnock, but is starting to claim that Warnock is actually the one who won't debate him. It is extraordinarily disturbing because you have a man who quite literally cannot speak. It's impossible to know what he thinks about anything. And he's only down like a point to the incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock. Take a look at some of these new clips that I have from Herschel Walker at a rally. I guess it's called a rally, although it's not clear whether, I mean, this could be a eulogy or a rally. You can't tell. It's not clear whether this is a happy event or a sad event or what, because it's not clear what he's talking about. Here is Herschel Walker talking about a bull in a field with 6 cows. Tell me if you can understand what he's talking about here.
I'll tell you this little story I heard one time. It's about everybody thinking something is better somewhere else. And I remember talking about this bull that was out in the field, and he had 6 cows with him. 3 of them was expecting calves. He had these 6 cows, but what he was worried about, he kept his nose up against the fence, seeing these other 3 cows up on the hillside.
Oh, is this like a grass is greener parable?
So as he's looking up on the hillside of these other 3 cows, not worried about what he got now, the grass as tall as his knees, all he had to do is eat grass. But he's worried about something else. And so one day, he measured that fence up. He measured that fence up and he said, I think I can jump this fence and get over there with those other cows. Now, not worried about what he got. I can jump it, I'm gonna get over there. So as he got back one afternoon, he took off running and he dove. And as he made it over the fence, his belly got all cut up and stuff. He rolled up and he got up and he knew he would have made it on the other side. He was so excited about it. And then he ran to the top of the hill. When he got up there, he realized that they were bulls too. And the reason I tell you that, don't think something is better somewhere else.
Okay, I mean, I guess he's saying in a very strange way, don't fall for the grass is greener on the other side. Okay, fine. Here's another story of a guy who got to the pearly gates, and it was a trick of some kind.
And this is about this story of this man that died and he went to heaven early. And when he got to heaven, St. Peter met him at the pearly gates. And St. Peter said, you're here early right now and your name ain't on the roll. But he said, I'm going to give you an opportunity to decide where you want to go. He said, you can go to heaven or you can go to hell, and I'm going to give you a chance to decide for yourself. And he puts him in this elevator and he takes him all the way down to hell. And the doors open up and there's a party going on. There's a lot of his friends down there and they're having a good time. And so after a couple of hours ago, St. Peter came to him and said, we got to leave now. We got to leave. He said, we got to go. He said, yeah, you got to go right now. So he puts him in this elevator. He takes him all the way up to heaven. And they get to heaven and the doors open up. And there's people floating around on clouds. They're having a good time. And
Dear God.
And after a couple of hours, St. Peter came to him and said, you ready to make the decision? And the guy said, well, St. Pete, I hate to tell you this, but I think I want to go to hell. He said, are you sure? He said, yeah, I want to go to
Really has a way with words.
hell. He said, that seems like my type of place. So he puts him in his elevator. They go all the way down to hell now, and when the doors open up now, it's hot. Hotter than today, it's hot.
Yeah.
People are looking miserable. They're terrible. They're just crying.
Okay, I'm not going to subject you to the rest of it. Folks, this guy's polling 46% in Georgia. I'm sorry, 45% in Georgia. Right now, if you look at polling, Georgia Senate, Herschel Walker versus Raphael Warnock, Walker is only behind by on average 1 point. In fact, the latest poll from Emerson has Walker ahead by 2. Now, maybe you don't agree with everything Raphael Warnock stands for. Maybe you don't like all of his policy positions. But we send 100 people to the U.S. Senate. And some intellectual capacity and cognitive ability should be a requirement. And this is not about, I know every time we talk about this, David, well, you're making fun of people who have mental illness. Does Walker have mental illness? And I'm not making fun of that. You're making fun of people who have a brain injury. Does Walker have a brain injury? I'm not making fun of that. Or what? This is a position that has certain intellectual requirements, or at least it should. So it's even if those things were true about Herschel Walker, it would still not be a reason to make him a United States senator. Here's one bonus. Here's Walker I guess, outlining his educational plan.
In our schools, you've seen it. Our kids are behind because they want to be woke. They want to be woke. What about teaching them how to write? What about teaching them how to read? What about teaching them how to spell?
Yeah.
But right now, we've elected people to Washington that want to profit off the backs of the miseries they're giving to us.
Yeah. Woke profits are the reason, I guess, school is bad at this point in time. So I know people have been emailing me and saying, David, you know, I've seen a lot of morons be elected to public office. You know, I was around for the Bush era and then Trump and all. But there's something about if Walker wins that they will be completely despondent. And I have to tell you that I get it. I really do. Speaking of disoriented, I want to play for you clips of a visibly disoriented Sarah Palin. Now, you might remember that Sarah Palin was the late John McCain's vice presidential running mate back in 2008. Thankfully, they lost. And she was kind of like the opening of the door to cartoonish Trumpism, where like anything goes. In some way, Palin was the predecessor to people like Trump, Madison Cawthorn, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Herschel Walker, as we saw. The normalization of people in completely over their heads in politics. She recently lost her election trying to become a congresswoman representing Alaska in the House of Representatives of Washington, D.C. She recently lost that. And she appeared on the Steve Bannon Real America's Voice War Room Pandemic show, whatever that is. And she seems to be completely disoriented. She doesn't know what the hell is going on. She attacks ranked choice voting. It's completely wild. And this was a woman who was almost a heartbeat away from the presidency of the United States. Think about that.
Well, you called it, Steve, when you explained what this newfangled cockamamie system called ranked choice voting is all about, when it doesn't matter if you perhaps are the most popular or most qualified candidate. You can get a whole lot of votes, Steve, but if you don't get enough second or third rankings from voters who choose another candidate.
What? Listening to Sarah Palin explain ranked choice voting is absolutely delightful in that she has no idea what's going on. She doesn't even understand the system under which she lost. She just has no idea what it's even about.
You can get a whole lot of votes, Steve, but if you don't get enough second or third rankings from voters who choose another candidate,
right,
then you're eliminated, or then you get second place and you don't win. And it's complicated. You explained it best. President Trump explained it very well.
Yeah, Trump really explained this concept well. He also explained, thermodynamics really well, just like she would, I'm sure.
Rally that he had up here, warning Alaskans that this newfangled experiment with ranked choice voting will split votes. It will allow liberals to skip on in, which is exactly what's happened thus far.
They can just skip on in and vote. By the way, this was Trump's explanation for ranked choice voting.
Fraud. It's a fraud.
That was his brilliant explanation.
And it's a very, very potentially fraught with fraud.
She has no idea to this day why and how she lost. She genuinely has no clue. And then, of course, these people want to use anger. They need everybody to be angry. That's how they operate. And here is Sarah Palin in this same interview. And by the way, why Sarah Palin's homes are like the most echoey places ever. It's like a cave. I've never understood. But here's Sarah Palin in her echoey house saying people should be angry she lost.
That harms the entire nation. So I think the entire country should be angry at what's going on with this establishment system. And it was the political establishment that created this system with the ranked choice voting and without encouraging the other Republican to drop out once he got thumped 3 times. Others should be outraged about what's going on here.
Right.
Our system is harming the rest of the U.S.
The everything that has a bad outcome to these people is fraudulent. And it's sort of the same argument that they would make if we figured out a way to get rid of the Electoral College and just have a national popular vote, which we should. We obviously should. They would say, oh, that's harming the country. Really? How is it? How would it harm the country that the candidate with the most votes wins? Well, it's not the will of the founder. It's the exact same type of thing. If the system leads to me losing, it's a bad system. And Sarah Palin, there is something comedic about the fact that she doesn't even get how and why she lost. And there's an amazing video from election night a couple weeks ago where she's like wherever her watch party, her results party is, and the information starts coming in that she lost, and she doesn't even really get it. And at one point she goes over and she cuts a cake. And just the absurdity, the visual absurdity of she doesn't really know what's going on, but they do have a cake there and she's going to move on to the cake. It is really something to see. They don't have any clue what's happening. And there are a number of systems in this country that should be reformed. And our voting systems are some of them. And we have to realize that even if they were to be changed, you would then deal with years of confused people claiming that by virtue of the fact that they lost, it must be a bad system. And certainly Sarah Palin is buying into that full speed ahead. If you value what we do at the David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. As a general rule, Trump plus India is a very dangerous combination, likely to lead to complete and total humiliation. Trump, when he is alongside Indian Prime Minister Modi, will often praise extraordinarily authoritarian ideas. You might remember that once Donald Trump spoke in India and mispronounced everything, and the crowd literally started to flee. You might remember our 2020 video. Indian crowd flees as Trump mispronounces everything. Remember Trump trying to pronounce Indian names for the crowd?
Swami Vive Kamanand, Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli.
Yeah, that was a hell of an event.
Namaste.
Yes, namaste. So anyway, Trump went on Indian TV yesterday, NDTV, New Delhi television, and just drops humiliating whopper after whopper. Now, I still don't really know why he's appearing on these shows. I think that there's probably less interest lately in having him on, what might be more mainstream American outlets. That's an interesting question in and of itself. But Donald Trump appearing alongside the Indian Prime Minister Modi, and Trump says a lot of crazy things, including that the United States is, quote, going to hell.
But overall, the President Trump, that's the question that keeps coming up, that in a democracy, India is considered the world's largest democracy. You're the world's oldest, and that's why we have this relationship. The democracies function on the principle that the losing side concedes defeat and the winning side
I agree with that.
takes over. But
When you lose.
In this case, you haven't, in a sense, you still haven't accepted the outcome of 2020. You still believe
because
it's
I look at the real. Take a look at what happened 2 weeks ago. It came out. The head of Facebook, Zuckerberg, said the
They had a Facebook, guys.
FBI came to him and told him there's Russian disinformation, don't say anything. And they went to the media and they suppressed it. That's a major form. This isn't just ballot stuffing. What they're doing was so bad. And what they're doing...
See if you can follow his explanation through the entire clip. I dare you.
...is a disgrace to our country. And nobody did anything about it. And it made, they say, the pollsters say it made from a 10 to a 20-point difference. But even with...
Can you imagine what he's claiming there? A 20-point difference because of the Hunter Biden laptop Zuckerberg thing. So instead of Biden winning by, well, I don't even know what was the percentage, 6. Trump was going to win the popular vote by 14. I mean, it's an absurd claim.
In the election outcome.
Oh, it was a tremendous... They suppressed all of that information, probably illegally. I assume it was illegally done, but it should have never done. Next.
You think that this is a kind of a problematic area when you have an election outcome and then one side doesn't accept?
No, Absolutely not. You know, I mean, we all know there is a lot of fraud, voter fraud in United States. You know, all the Democrat-run cities, Democrat-run districts.
Sorry, and by the way, if I said earlier that Trump appeared alongside Modi, this is not Modi. It's very clearly not Modi, and I don't know why I had that in my notes, but this is Shalabh Kumar, the Republican Hindu Coalition founder. This is not Modi. I was misinformed, and I apologize for that.
We know that they're counties. This time, because of the pandemic, it was much bigger. It was much bigger. That's what essentially happened. Now, if first of all, let me also tell you that Hindu Americans and India in general, they don't give a hoot about this. I'm in the community. I go there, travel there every day. They don't give a hoot about this.
He feels strongly about it. So.
Yes, he does feel strongly about it.
This now really devolves into just like a mess of a conversation.
Thanks. You know what I feel strongly about? Our country. And our country is going to hell.
There it is. It is going to hell, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what I feel strongly about.
And
when you look at what's happened to the U.S., when you look at what's happened in 2 years to the United States, we've never been in a position like this, ever.
But, you know, some would say, President Trump, that this idea of a kind of a stolen or an illegal election can have consequences in terms of what happened in January 6th. Some would say is a consequence of that there was actual violence.
Yeah.
Democrats have said it.
Isn't that a
Democrats have said it for a long time about different elections.
What is he talking about?
They went out and they said the 2016 election was stolen. The same people that now complain.
And of course, this is a false equivalency. The idea that there was an influence campaign by other countries who preferred Trump over Hillary Clinton is not the literal theft of an election in the way that Trump is claiming there was fraud.
We're big complainers about 2016. They say I stole the election in 2016, which I didn't do. But the same
and by the way, Hillary conceded like hours after the results.
Voices that you hear said, no, there's tremendous proof. There's tremendous evidence. And again, go back to just 2 weeks ago when Zuckerberg said he was told Russian disinformation, don't say anything.
Sure.
Don't say anything until after the election.
Yeah. So there's just a bizarre interview. Here's just one other clip in which Trump was asked about 2024.
Let me just ask you to see both of you back together again. Is this all an indication that you are now set on the road to 2024?
Well, look,
momentum.
Everyone wants me to run. I'm leading in the polls, in every poll, the Republican polls and in Democrat polls. And
now, that's obviously not true. Earlier, I told you about a new poll in which Joe Biden is leading by 6 in the hypothetical matchup. But reality does not matter.
I'll make a decision in the very near future, I suspect. And I think that a lot of people are going to be very happy. But we've been friends for a long time. We've been friends from before the last campaign in 2016 and then 2020. And I've had a great relationship to India and to Prime Minister Modi. We've been friends, and I think he's a great guy and doing a terrific job. It's not an easy job he's got. So, but we've known each other a long time. Good man.
Right. That's an interesting thing you said, that you said you're still making up your mind, but a lot of people will be happy with the decision.
I think so. A lot of people will be, and a couple of people will be unhappy for us.
Okay. This is quite an interesting hint that we've got there, Shalabh Kumar. You think it's now almost a done deal that President Trump is going to run again? And should he run again? Is he the obvious choice?
Of course he should run again. That's our view. And it'll be great if he runs again. I mean, our community, they will just love to have.
Yeah, the Indian community will just absolutely love Trump, and the Hindu community will love Trump. By the way, two communities that don't particularly love Trump, but that's the claim that's being made. What a wild interview. Truly bizarre stuff. And again, this, the right used to claim very loudly, no matter whatever happens in the United States, you never say America isn't great. You never say America is downhill or going bad or whatever. And now it's completely acceptable among these folks to say, no, America sucks now. You need me to fix it and make it good. America's going to hell. In the Bush era, Republicans would say, you never say that. Very, very different Republican Party at this point in time. All right, before we get to voicemails, I want to tell you about something which it's one of these things where like it very clearly seems like a lie, but if it were true, it's almost even worse. There's a very interesting Rolling Stone article which says that Trump told his White House team that he needed to protect, quote, Russiagate documents. Okay, so understand, this is the assertion being made, and we'll talk about whether it's true. The former president, who left the White House with a trove of sensitive material, believes there are documents that would expose a deep state plot against him, and told confidants he needed to protect them from the next administration. So really, I mean, this is crazy. But think about what it is being asserted here in this Rolling Stone article. In his final days at the White House, Trump told advisors he needs to preserve certain Russia-related documents to keep his enemies from destroying them. Ah, okay. The documents relate to the federal investigation into Russia election meddling and alleged collusion with Trump's campaign. At the end of his presidency, Trump and his team pushed to declassify these so-called Russiagate documents, believing they would expose a deep state plot against him. According to a person with direct knowledge of the situation and another source briefed on the matter, Trump told several people working in and outside the White House he was concerned that Biden's administration, or the, quote, deep state, would shred, bury, or destroy the evidence that Trump was wronged. This is a newly relevant claim based on the FBI search. So let's kind of talk through this, right? If it is true that Donald Trump believed he had to steal documents because they exposed the deep state plot against him, which the Biden administration would shred and destroy, that is bonkers nuts. But there's a second layer to this stuff. Just because Trump said that's what he believed doesn't mean it's actually what he believed. And what I mean by that is, if these documents really exonerated Trump, why would he want to take them and hide them? These would be things you would want to publicize. And you can't rule out that this is something that's being brought up now to try to justify Donald Trump taking the documents that he took. So there's like 3 or 4 different layers to this thing. But again, if this was really what Trump said and what Trump believed, he is essentially QAnon, right? The Republican Party essentially elected QAnon to the presidency when they elected Donald Trump. But because it's Trump, we never want to ignore the possibility that this is only what some are claiming Trump said and he didn't really say it. Third possibility, that this is something Trump said but didn't mean. There's also, you have to assume everybody might be lying. The people now telling Rolling Stone Trump said this might be lying. Trump might have said it, but might have been dishonestly saying it to create plausible deniability over taking the documents. Anything is true. It's a stack of lies. It's like those Russian Matryoshka dolls where you open the doll and there's a smaller and smaller doll in it. It's lies and deception all baked together, almost like a beef Wellington of sorts, I think maybe is the way I would describe it. Really wacky, wacky stuff. We have a voicemail number, and that number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Here's a great voicemail from the Eggman. You know, I spoke about my time up north in the Hudson Valley recently in New York, and I mentioned you go north, you go west, it gets more and more conservative. The Eggman called in, who lives way out there, and he said, David, the Hudson Valley is nothing. You should see what goes on where I live.
Hey, Dave. I like how you described New York and how you said the further north or west you get in New York State, the further conservative
yes,
it gets. I live in western New York, Dave. I live a half hour from Niagara Falls. Okay, that's how western New York. Well, not that close, but we are so western New York. I call it West Virginia, New York.
Right.
There's more Dale Earnhardt 03 NASCAR and Trump flags around here than you would even see in Florida.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. Really, there are a ton of Confederate flags. You would think that we're in the South. So the caller from Texas yesterday who told you about all the right-wing anti-Trump Let's Go Brandon flags, he described West Virginia, New York. When you talk about the Hudson Valley, I don't think you have any idea how red it is up here. I grow a large beard and drive an old pickup truck just to be incognito, just so they won't kill me for being a Jew.
Oh, God.
Shalom, brother.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the area Eggman is describing is very different. You know, Hudson Valley, lots of Jewish folks, gay folks in Hudson Valley, and no need to be hiding incognito the way that the Eggman describes hiding as a Jewish man in Western New York. So, yes, I am aware that Hudson Valley is not nearly as right-wing as the areas that Eggman is talking about. But yeah, no, the further you get from New York City in New York State, the wackier and wackier that it gets. We have a fantastic bonus show for you today. Chuck Schumer is going to be holding a same-sex marriage vote. Why? Why? Isn't this a settled issue? Well, there's a PR reason why it's being done, and we're going to talk about it on the bonus show. Secondly, we are going to dive deep into the Jackson, Mississippi water crisis, and we're going to tie this into economic justice. We're going to tie this into climate change. It is a major story. It is another major water crisis. Many people familiar with Flint, Michigan. This is now another water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi. And thirdly, there is a California school district asking the families of the students to rent out rooms to the teachers in the school district. What? Why is that happening? It may or may not surprise you. All of those stories and more on today's bonus show. You can sign up at joinpacman.com and get instant access to the bonus show. You can also, if you're waiting for the exact perfect time to get a membership, for all of the stars to align, for there to be a so-called double rainbow and point to a membership on both ends of the rainbow, get on my newsletter at davidpacman.com, because on 9/19, September 19th, we are doing a massive membership discount, and you need only be on my newsletter to be notified. All right. So I would love to see you on the bonus show today, but if you're waiting for the 9/19 special, I also understand. And either way, we'll be back with a new show for you tomorrow. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. I protect all of my passwords, accounts, and devices using Aura. I get instant alerts about threats, like if my email or password are found on the dark web, so I can fix the problem fast. Try Aura free for 2 weeks using my link below.